So I've got 372 grams of water and 330 grams of starter, and I'm going to add in a bunch of sunflower seeds. Then we mix that together. Next, I will add 400 grams of all-purpose flour. And 200 grams of whole wheat hard bread flour for a total of 600 grams of flour. Now we mix. It will start to come together like this after a bit of mixing, and then at a certain point I end up just using my hands, although you could probably get it all done with the spatula. I find squeezing it in between your hands like this works really well. This is a pretty wet dough, still only about 70% hydration. And then we're going to let that sit for 20 minutes for the autolyse stage. After a 30-minute autolyse step, I'm going to add 16 grams of salt. I'll add about half of it first. Start to mix that through. Much harder to do with one hand than I thought. Alright, we mix that a little bit, and then the other half goes in. And at this point, usually wet my hand a little bit. Just put a tiny bit more water on there. And give it another one of these to really mix it in. And do a couple of stretch and folds. And then let it rest for another half hour. So after maybe 4 to 8 folds of pulling it out and folding it over on itself, it's starting to form a bit more of a dough. It's less shaggy looking than before. Again, I will let it rest for 30 minutes and repeat that process 2 or 3 more times. All right, 30 minutes has passed. Time for a stretch and fold. I like to wet my hands just a little bit so the dough doesn't stick to my hands. And pull it out and stretch it back. about 4 times usually. Or 5. We'll let that sit in there for another 30 minutes. Done. All right, on to another stretch and fold. There we go. See it in another 30 minutes. All right, here we go. Last stretch and fold before I form the dough and put it into the banneton to proof. All right, I'm gonna do the last stretch and fold and then the shaping. But now we're gonna put a little bit of rice flour into the bannetons. There's one. And 2. So for this one, we'll go do one more stretch and fold. There we go. And now add it onto the counter. A little bit of flour in my hand so it doesn't stick. And I like to kind of pull towards me. kind of having it roll on itself like that. It starts to create tension in the top. Lots of people will do a bench rest, I guess, now, and then shape it again. I'm just going straight into the Banneton. Okay, there we go. So, into the Banneton. I also like to give it a little bit of an extra pinch, just to pull that a little tight. There we go, and I'm going to put that into just a plastic shopping bag. And I'm just going to put it into the fridge just like that and let it proof overnight, and we'll take it out in the morning for about an hour or so before we bake it, and then we'll bake it in the oven. If you're interested, this is a 65% hydration dough. It's a lot firmer than the 70%. This one's a caraway seed. And that's ready to go into a plastic bag as well, and proof in the oven or in the fridge overnight. There we go. Okay, and here is the bread in the morning, about 8 to 10 hours later, and it has proofed quite a bit. So we'll let it come up to room temperature, and then we'll fire up the oven and bake it. Okay, so the bread has warmed up to about room temperature. You can see it's nicely risen. So what I like to do is I put parchment paper over top and I turn it out onto a board like such. There we go. And we'll score it and get it in the oven. So after 15 minutes at 450 degrees, this is what they look like. I have this oven mitt blocking the vent, which is right under there, somewhere in there. Here they are. We let out a little bit of steam, and usually at this point I might rotate them because it's a little hotter in the back of my oven, and I will turn it down to 425 and let them cook for another maybe 20 minutes. All right, the bread is done. Out of the oven it comes. And here we have the final sourdough.